Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a first-class book on housing law which we have reviewed before. This book is called Housing Allocation and Homelessness. It's the law and practice regarding this subject. It's now in a 4th edition and it's been written by Jan Luber, Queen's Counsel, who will be known to many of you, Liz Davis and Connor Johnston. Now the book, as I say, is a brand new one. It's this one over here which we'll look at. Elizabeth and I talked about the book because we've obviously reviewed it in the past. It tends to be expanding a bit with the huge amount of cases and information which is continually being added to with the new editions. But we've given the review title for our appreciation the following: New Legislation on Homelessness, expertly discussed in this practical guide, now in a new 4th edition. Well, let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a green cover. You see there's a paperback. You can see it's quite sort of not as heavy as it might be. There is the spine, and there is the back page, and there's a lot of information on the back talking about the book itself, which you can read, and you can find out all of the latest stuff. There is of course a CD right at the back as well, which is very, very helpful in this area. Now the index is a detailed one and it's run by paragraph numbering in case you're looking for anything specific, and there are a load of appendices. For instance, there's appendices 3, and then you've got various regulations and excuse me and so forth, and various codes of guidance and so forth there. Now at the front of the book, there's the front page there, and then after that you've got a very more recent stop press, as it's called, from April 2016. I'm recording this in the summer. It just sets out what's happened concerning the Welsh Government on the 24th of March 2016. Then there's, after that was added very much at the last moment. Then there's a preface to the 4th edition, which is there, which sets out a fairly substantial amount of information, and it says the law discussed is that of England and Wales up to date on the 18th of April, but of course there have been some changes since. Then you can see in the middle of the book you've got standard paragraph numbering and footnotes at the bottom. It's a very substantial work, and one that we all tend to refer to on a much more regular basis these days, I think, rather than going for the loose-leafed works, which are very heavy to carry around. And this in fact has as much information as you want, plus of course the excellent CD. We're now entering the 4th international or 4th industrial revolution in terms of internet information technology, and we are going to see very big changes, I think, again in the next 10 years about the way these books are presented and what we're actually looking at by way of the information we need for the courts. Now let me say what we think about the book. By what means can a lawyer or other advisor assist someone who is homeless to apply for a home? That's the question. Obviously there are multiple answers to this question, none of which are straightforward, which is why those dealing with the difficult problem of homelessness will, for the most part, have come to appreciate the practical guidance provided in this well-known title from Jordan Publishing. And as I say, it's now in the 4th edition. And for those of you who don't already know this book, which is Housing Allocation and Homelessness, it's a long-established legal text, and the news is that it's now been completely updated for the 4th edition. And as the 3 co-authors admit, that's Jan Luber, Liz Davis and Connor Johnston, they're all experts in this field, and the legal and political environment regarding homelessness and the allocation of social housing is even more depressing in early 2016 than it was 4 years ago, when the previous edition of this book was published. There's been a steep rise in the numbers of people experiencing homelessness, caused by a number of factors which the authors discuss in detail, from cuts in benefits to low pay and high rents, particularly in London. Britain, as the authors affirm, is in the grip of a housing crisis, especially in England. And that's something which is very, very obvious when you look around the big cities at the moment. And it's not a subject, of course, that's going to go away. It is, of course, a subject which was very high on the political agenda with the mayor elections in London earlier this year, 2016. And, of course, it is featuring on the current political agenda of the newly formed government under Mrs May. Now, the situation in Wales, which is described as more encouraging, assumes special significance as one of the main reasons why practitioners, housing officers and other advisors on homelessness would do well to acquire the book. And of course there is the stop press right at the beginning, which I referred to earlier. The new material then contained includes a comprehensive account of the new housing legislation in Wales, namely the Housing Wales Act 2014 Part 2. Excuse me. Naturally, all those dealing with homelessness and the homeless in Wales will need to familiarise themselves with the new law, and the same should also be said of anyone dealing with homelessness in England. The new Welsh legislation requires local authorities to provide better prevention help, the idea being, in the author's words, quote, to prevent homelessness altogether, which I think is a laudable aim, but I don't really see how it's actually going to be achieved in practice. I have to say that, because of the number of people who are coming into the country and the lack of an infrastructure, which is the fundamental problem about the actual pool of houses available, as we know, both in the private rented sector, the buying sector, and of course the public sector. So if it sounds utopian, perhaps that's a good thing, because at least it's something to strive for. It now remains to be seen as to whether this legislation, of course, will work. Other new material in the edition, to summarise, includes a review of a recent Supreme Court decision, a series of decisions on priority need, intentional homelessness, always a difficult area, and out-of-borough placements, also very controversial. And of course there's a detailed discussion of the effects of the Allocation Act 2011, which of course was under the coalition government. Now, within more than 1,600 pages, the title offers an impressive array of resources, including extensive tables of cases, statutes, statutory instruments, and also of European legislation. And with its extensive footnoting, numbered paragraphs throughout, which I've shown, and detailed tables of contents and index, the book is reassuringly navigable. And I think you will be able to find things quite quickly, depending on what you're looking for. And that's really for both professionals, advisors and litigants in person, of whom there are a very large number today, because there's no legal aid money available to assist them. And unless you actually have a law centre, hopefully the law centres will have this book as well. Further, there are two appendices that provide the codes of guidance on respectively allocation and homelessness in England, and the Welsh Code of Guidance is also to be found on the accompanying CD-ROM, which is at the back of the book. Practitioners, I would think, and indeed anybody advising professionally on homelessness, on housing options and allocations of social housing and letting, that includes councillors, by the way, elected members, will appreciate the refreshing clarity with which this book illuminates a complex and sensitive subject. And I hope every housing official in the local authorities in the country has a copy of this book in their office. The law is discussed, as in England and Wales, up to the 15th of April, as I've said, but there is the stop press right at the beginning, which I'll just show you again, which just updates you a little bit concerning some of the revised codes of guidance for local authorities. And I think that could well be a forerunner of things to come. Just reminding you of the book itself. Here we go. This is just homelessness assistance. You can see the structure there. Paragraph numbering and footnotes at the bottom. A lot of information, very large number of cases, suitability for accommodation, another area of importance. This is a very good book. Luber is at the top of the tree when it comes to his knowledge and advice on this subject area, and he's ably assisted by his colleagues. I'd like to thank everybody involved for producing the new edition. It does make our lives easier as professionals. So a big thank you to everybody. Bye-bye.